As Republicans wrap up a weekend retreat in Baltimore, some are tossing around this phrase, quote, "We don't run the government," reminding people that Democrats are still in charge of the White House and Senate. So is this a case of the GOP wanting to grab power without ultimately taking responsibility if anything goes wrong? Well, joining us now, Dick Harpootlian, former chairman of the South Carolina Democratic Party, and Matt Schlapp, former White House political director under President George W. Bush. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
So your opinion, Dick, we can begin with you. Is this really just stating the obvious fact, or is this really a matter of maybe trying to pass the buck in case something doesn't necessarily go their way?
Well, I mean, I think the headline on the paper ought to be, "Dog catches car, what now?" The Republicans ran a very aggressive campaign saying that, you know, they wanted to take over the House and the Senate. They've taken over the House, and under the Constitution, no bill can get passed without passing the House, the Republican House. And if something is passed by the Republican House, the Senate could not pass it, or the President could veto it. This is what our constitutional government's all about. Rather than the Republicans worrying about who's responsible or who gets credit, what they need to do is worry about coming up with proposals that move this country forward. And repealing health care is DOA. That's just a political ploy. That's just something they're going to throw up against the wall so they look politically active. They got to do something about the deficit, about spending, about all these things, come up with proposals. And just as we saw in the lame duck session, President Obama has reached out across the aisle, and they accomplished some things in the lame duck session they didn't in the previous 2 years. So I would say to the Republicans, take responsibility, take ownership, and let's get this country moving forward.
So, Matt, how do you feel about that? Or is this really passing the buck? Are they not really maybe stating the obvious fact, or is this a ploy and a calculated move?
Well, I tell you, I just say to Dick, he says repealing Obamacare is DOA. You know why it's DOA? Because the Democrats have a majority in the Senate and they occupy the White House. So he's exactly right. And that's the political reality we're in. Republicans are going to be able to propose ways to get this economy moving and to grow the economy and to lower unemployment. But they can't do that without partnering with Democrats in the Senate and with President Obama. So I applaud them for coming into office in a sober and careful tone to make sure that they connect with the American people and keep this promise that they're going to do everything possible to get the economy moving and to get people hiring folks across this country.
So a sober tone is what you just said, Matt. Do you think that this is any type of reaction to the events that happened in Arizona last week and the pause, the national pause that has taken place all across the country? And is this a way to move us back into this political spectrum?
I think that what happened on election night and the way Speaker Boehner accepted what the election results were demonstrated that they realized that when so many people across this country are hurting, when unemployment is so high, that it wasn't really a night for a celebration, it was a night to start to get to work. I think what's happened in Arizona is a terrible tragedy. And if that has one little positive effect of making both parties realize they ought to be careful with their words and that we ought to make sure that we get back to the people's business, maybe one small good thing can come of it. But it's a horrible thing to think about, and I definitely think that that both parties have done the right thing to make sure that we set the right tone to the American people in regards to what happened.
So, Dick, ultimately somebody is responsible for getting some work done. So how do we make that happen?
Well, you know, I think that we are seeing a much more bipartisan approach. Not that everyone was going to agree on everything, but we saw that in the lame duck session. I think the Speaker has taken very positive moves to reach out to the Obama administration, and they've reached back. This is not going to be easy, but I think, and I would agree that what happened in Arizona made us all pause for a minute and maybe get off of the rhetoric a little bit and realize that there are a lot of people out there out of jobs, a lot of people losing their homes, a lot of people that are in serious shape. And this country is fighting 2 wars. We've got a huge deficit. And we've got to stop playing these political games. I think both sides of the aisle realize that. I think what happened in Arizona gave everybody pause for a moment. And maybe out of that tragedy can come some positive steps to get this country moving in the right direction again. We don't need the extremes on either side to dominate this process. And so far, I got to tell you, I think that we're making some positive steps with this new Congress.
All right, thank you very much. We appreciate you both joining us. Thanks.